Welcome back again. And what I'm going to tackle is why Africa is a century behind uh, United States of America. And I'm going to explain this stepwise as per uh, how I've prepared my content. The first thing is that one common thing that we share with the United States of America is that we were all colonized. So this forms a basis for a good argument for my story. And this is what is going to actually explain to us why are we a century behind America, United States of America. Now here we go. America, remember, is very diverse, and the diversity of the United States of America has been resulted by what we call the Industrial Revolution and the Agrarian Revolution. Now, once this new development started coming up from the European countries, remember, um, the lands were now being changing, the agricultural system was changing, and due to this change in the agricultural sector in the European nations, some people were forced to be squatters and others lacked land, and land was specifically belonged to the noble, who were given by the ruling class for their loyalty. Now, because some of the Europeans were frustrated of this new development, they had to go to search lands elsewhere. And it's through this searching that they find the, the original inhabitants of America existing with a huge land that has not been put to use, a land that was enough for them. So they go on, and remember, they come up with the same technology, the same challenges that the intellectual challenges that they had been told, with the new skills they had learned through the agrarian and the industrial revolution. So they move on. So by the time the these people are migrating to United States of America, what we had is a mixture of people who are exposed to the new development of these great nations. Now, the second thing is colonization. When the United States of America was colonized, um, the power that they were given by their colonial masters and how they were able to structure the government that they had to ensure that there was political stability and there was efficient and effective use of resources. That is the next thing that makes America ahead a century uh, as compared to Africa. Mostly, Africa was mostly colonized by the Great Britain, even having the formation of the Commonwealth Games and the Commonwealth community, and above everything else. Um, America also happens to be in the same umbrella of the colonial masters that colonized all the other countries, and the Great Britain was able to colonize America after following them. After they realized that the country was good, they follow them. They're the machineries, they're the powers. So before these people could restructure themselves, they already found that the people, the nobles that they had left in the Great Britain, had actually followed them to their new settlement, where they had intermingled with the original inhabitants of United States of America. Now they were colonized and they tried to fight for the independence. We have had these great holidays of the America Independence Day, and they actually gained independence in the between the 1778 and 1783. Now the next big step that formed the crucial moment of their independence, or why they are a century ahead, is how they walipokea huo uhuru. Remember, because the Britain were already had exploited the almost over the whole continent, and the awareness was created and everybody was in light. mm, they had nowhere else to go to search for resources. At that particular time, Britain, when they gave independence to America, they had other options like going to Africa. They had other options, like colonizing Asia. Now, when Africans got the independence, these colonial masters had no alternative of where they could get resources to continue their production and productivity in these industries that required huge resources, yet the lands and the resources were becoming scarce and more scarce in the European nations. Now, this made them that although they gave Africans that independence that they needed, um, they still had to come back in a new way so that they can ensure that they still get these resources and continue with their productivity and manufacturing that they have till date. The Americans, the advantage they had is that when they gained independence, there was other alternative where they could get these resources. So America got full independence, and that the colonial masters were not behind them to ensure that they throw their influence to their new gained leadership. Now, because Africa was the only option for these European nations to continue getting resources, they continue applying divide and rule, ensuring that they even stuck to those governments to form these leaderships that they wanted. So you had America gain independence from the Great Britain. Now, the way they structured their government, uh, the constitution, because it was the one that formed the basis for their government. And this we can give credit to the first president of America, who was not greedy for power nor resources. And after gaining independence, the Americans did not have a constitution, but they had something else to guide them. The Article of Confederation, which was which was created in the 1978. They also had in 1788, maybe after 6 years of after maybe implementing this Article of Confederation, 6 years later they formed the Constitution, which guided them, and they structured it to a president having term of four years. Imagine the president who was there and could not object. So he accepted. Having been a leader, they created a presidential term for 4 years, where George Washington had George Washington actually had suggested that a president should serve to a limit of 2 years, but it was not constitutionalized. Uh, this was actually constitutionalized in 1945, after the passing of Franklin Roosevelt, who had served for 4 terms and died while still in office in 1945. He actually served for a period of 12 years. And during his time that America was dealing with the Great Depression and the World War II. And it is through these political challenges, or during this time of this political instability, that actually made this presidential term limit to actually two, two terms of each of 4 years was constitutionalized. Well, unlike Africans, after gaining independence, like I said, that the European nations still needed resources for their industries. Yet they had no other alternative or other nation which they could have colonized, because the world was changing and everyone was aware of their colonialism. So they left through Shingo Upande. And because they needed these resources, they still exerted influence to the current leadership of the nations that they had given independence. We have, like in Kenya, that despite gaining independence, the Chief Justice at that particular time was a European. We had that particular detective, Patrick Shaw, who continued to terrorize Kenyans and commit extrajudicial killings. We have the likes of Congo, Mobutu Sese Seko Kukubaga Zabanga, the richest country in terms of resources in the world. Did the Belgium, did they want really to let this country full of these resources to go like that? That is what they have actually done to date. And the African leaders were still felt like they needed to be compensated for what they contributed towards the fighting for independence. So they were focusing after their own stomachs. They were focusing after on reaching themselves. Look about the richest people in Africa. Most of them have political connections, or in one or the other, the, the amount of the wealth they have gained was through their fathers who actually were president at that particular time. Secondly, these leaders did not want to give power to other people. We have the likes of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga writing a book, Not Yet Uhuru. What was he meaning? That these leaders that had gained independence were after filling their own stomachs and benefiting their own tribesmen. They brought emotions of the suffering that we suffered together to gain independence, to reward themselves for the lands that we did get. So the political stability that America had, and the strong institutions and the constitution that they had, and the leadership that they had at that particular time, is what has made them to be a century ahead. Because remember, these leaders that we got for our countries, the public funds that was collected through taxes was misappropriated. We did not have a well-structured procurement system. There was no penalties for those loss of property and the stealing of these properties. And that is what has made African countries to be back. Because if you could be just United States or United Countries of Africa under one leadership that have integrity, like the Americans, we could be far. If these colonial masters could not just go forever without focusing on Africa, we could be ahead very far. But they instead wanted to continue exploiting these African countries even after they have gone. So that is the next reason why Africa, we are behind. Other reason is, remember, most of America is urbanized. Now, by urbanization, I mean that most of African countries um, are a 24-hour economy. And also they are very diverse, unlike Africans where we are only a single economy. We have Nigeria focusing on oil, having other African nations that the backbone of the economy is agriculture. Well, take for instance, Nairobi in terms of revenue collection as a devolution itself is almost 20 times than other devolved units. Now, so imagine 82% of American citizens actually live in in urbans. Now, this means that they are able to contribute effectively and to create other great things that contribute to the economy of USA. Other key something to note is that America is a third of Africa. This is what I mean that Africa is three times America's size. This is what I mean that there's no African country that can compete with America because all those states of Americas, or speak of California, speak of Texas, speak of all that states. Some of these states are even larger than African countries. They are very large and very productive. If we have this combination of these states that are bigger than Africa, then how can we be able to compete with them? Urbanized, having modern infrastructure, modern technology, having one of the greatest corporates in the world located in the United States of America. Yes, another factor that makes United States of America to be more ahead or a century ahead of of Africa is how diversified it is. I said it is diversified in terms of economic activities. It is diversified in terms of the population, having immigrants from all over the world. Um, unlike Kenya, where you can maybe there's a debate one day came one vote, one man, one shilling. That we are divided across tribal lines. In America, it's hard to identify yourself, even to be a Native American, because uh, in terms of percentage, you might be a very little percentage that will have no a great population of 340 million people with an average income of in terms of US dollars to be much and to be specific, this actually contributes to a lot of money which they make as a country, unlike African countries where the average income per month is almost 20,000 Kenyan shillings, which is more way less, even minus taxes, minus what, it's low. American citizens are paid higher. That's why they contribute much to them in terms of taxes to their country. Now, this is another factor why Africa we are a century behind, because in terms of the money that we get for salaries, money that should be deducted is way much smaller, and this means that we also have a small, we equally have a small income, which actually finally contribute to less um, GDP. Another thing is that America as a country has a lot of giant brands and corporates. These giant corporates are multi-billion industries that have their products to every corner of the world, like Coca-Cola, we have Tesla, we have Google, Microsoft, we have Apple, we have SpaceX, we have Tesla, Walmart, we have Netflix. Most of America's industries are global, and by global, this means that they generate trillions and trillions of money. So the countries where they sell those products, they are deducted in terms of taxes to develop those nations. Uh, Remember, much of the money still goes to the owner who is in the US of A. And he continues to make more developments there in terms of buildings, in terms of infrastructure, and other things. Technology is another factor that makes America a century ahead um, of Africa. The technology that they have in terms of how they build their roads, their buildings, is something that makes them to be efficient. Even the cars, and how you can go. You can imagine America as a country has been reduced to a country like Kenya in terms of traveling, though it is miles and miles away. But people travel in America. You are in Florida, now you're in Texas, we're Miami. They're speaking like manze huko ni Madhare, kule ni sijui ni hapo ni Ungwaro, because of how the roads are. They can drive at high speeds and reach there very quickly. Also, the life there is very cheap. Another thing, these industries, remember, the money that they get goes back to construct those countries and to make it to another again. Another final factor is to look at America has a total of 27 trillion GDP. The Africa as a continent, combination of all the 55 nations, you combine the GDP of Africa is 3.4 trillion, which is less than um, America's greatest economy of one state that is California, that has a GDP of 3.9 trillion. Now California, having a GDP of averagely 4, as per to different sources, now that's the average of 4 trillion, is equal to India as a country. Imagine. And how India is big, making its own um, manufacturing based in medicine, yet it's only equivalent to one of the best states of America. We have the next large state economy is Texas at 2.7 trillion, which is equivalent to that the GDP of Italy. We have the other one is New York that has a GDP of 2.3 trillion, which is equivalent to that of Canada. We have Florida that has a GDP of 1.7, which is equal to that of Spain. Then we have Illinois that has a GDP of 1.1 trillion, equivalent to that of Saudi Arabia. And most of America's states' GDP are even greater than even one of the best African countries. Like, for example, the best country in Africa per GDP is Nigeria with 510 billion. Then the next is South Africa at 470 billion. The next one is Egypt at 450 billion. Then we have Algeria at 200 billion. Then we have Ethiopia at 141 billion US dollars. I'm speaking in terms of US dollars. And finally, Kenya at 1.6 US billion dollars. That is equivalent to Guatemala. Yeah, this is the reason why, as Africa as a country, we are very far from actually beating US of A. Yeah, finally, also to add is that the American leadership is very diverse. That is very mature, not diverse. With this diversity, it's able to control and reduce wastage of funds and to put either three arms of government under state capture. So thank you. Let's meet next time.